And now that you're talking about like Native American month that you did in New Jersey, this celebration, do you feel part of the theater community in New York City? Do you like to see more theater made by Native American artists?
Well, yeah, I mean, right now it is a beautiful time when and from how we kind of say around our table in Indian country, right, on Turtle Island, um, there are a plethora of young native playwrights, say maybe 20, 30 years ago, it may have been a handful, right? But now, I mean, they are really coming out with a lot of variations in the narrative, right? Some of it is referencing some historical content. Some of it is referencing stereotypes and archetypes of our people. Some of them are referencing, news stories, right? And living in a contemporary modern day world. The one thing that holds us back, though, and we, is when I say not hold us back, one thing that is a barrier, I should say, is we don't have a space, right? We don't really we don't have a theater location, right? We partner with other theaters in a lot of cases, or we, so it becomes a challenge of how we're able to fully produce something, right? And I think those are kind of especially in New York, you can't come to and I'll quote elder of mine, William S. Yellow Robe Jr., who's a playwright. He is the most prolific playwright of this time, right? That just recently passed, and at least in my time, and that I've gotten to know. And he said, when people get off a bus or a train or a plane in New York, and they say, I want to go to the American Indian or the Indigenous American theater, where would they go? They wouldn't have a place to go.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where do we go for workshops? Where do we go for, like for our people? Like if that's the way, because we're community people. So usually when we go to a large city, we typically try to look for that community, right? To kind of have that moral support and that camaraderie. We may branch off and do other things, but that core is because it's kind of how we come from our communities, right? And it's not here, and a lot of the barriers are a lot of the organizations now that sort of produce theater maybe at a high level, but they don't have, multi-year funding. We don't have a space. We don't have, wealthy donors to give to the organization, and we don't have an endowment. And being, working working with AMERINDA as a theater production director here for the first time in my life, I've come to learn that those are the 4 pillars that larger theaters have that support, because then they can rent their space out to earn income. They can get box office income. They can do workshops to get income.
Yeah.
We don't have that, right? Because we're renting an office and we rent a theater from somewhere else. And, now there's been in-kind donations and stuff that have gone on, which is beautiful. It's wonderful, right? But that's not sustainable, right? All the time, it fluctuates, right? And you got to worry about somebody else's schedule. When can you get your show in there? And, all of those things. So I think we still have a ways to go. It's great to see the movement, emerging and continuing to have strength with the young people, because I feel like, we have a lot of Native actors. We have a lot, we have more Native playwrights and writers now. I think we need more Native producers, right? Because that's a whole nother level.
Yes.
Executive producing stuff. And we have decent amount of crew people that understand, stage management and tech stuff and, lighting and all of that, which is good. But again, I think we still have a ways to continue to go, and which is good because, I know there's things like we have some popular shows now that are on television that have, Native stories and Native showrunners and all of that involved. There's a lot of animation stuff coming out now where native writers and these writers workshop have emerged with a lot of stuff for Disney and Warner Brothers and all of these platforms. And it's wonderful, but, we have to keep that going. Again, we have to also keep the youth engaged. It's just still a continuous process, so.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm from Mexico, and of course I want to see more theater made by Latinos, right? Yeah. And produced by Latinos, and even like the language. I would like to see more theater in Spanish, right?
Right.
But it's process.
Yeah.
And it's to finish this interview, John, I know we can talk for a long time, but we would like to ask you a few questions. Like, yeah. We want to know you a little bit more. So, oh my God, that's great. So, one quick answer questions, okay? Mm-hmm. So, favorite food. What is your favorite
food? What was the question?
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food? Oh, paella.
Paella. Oh my God, that's Spanish. Wow.
Yeah, I knew you would go, especially a seafood one.
Oh, wow. Great.
Yes. Dump all the seafood in it. I love it. It just.
Great. What about favorite play or musical?
My favorite play or musical? Oh, wow. My favorite play right now would be Hadestown.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yep. And my favorite musical recently was In the Heights. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. I wish I had been cast in that one.
Well, Lil Manuel, if you are watching us, please call John. Your favorite writer or actor or musician?
My favorite actor would be wow, I have a lot. Jeez. Woo. Well, my favorite writer, I'll tell you, I just mentioned him, is William S. Yellow Robe Jr., playwright. And favorite actor, geez, my list is so long. It was Clint Eastwood. It was one of my favorite actor. Favorite actress would be like Meryl Streep.
Okay.
Yeah. Another actor of mine would be Wes Studi. And I have a long list, so we'll just leave it at those three.
Do you have a director that you would like to work with in theater or in series or movies?
Wow. Well, there's a brief story that I had. I auditioned for a role in a show that was a series that was on HBO, and and the lady that auditioned me, the casting director, works with Michael Mann a lot, and I like the way Michael Mann tells a lot of his stories, and so he is one that I wouldn't mind working with, as well as let's see, there's I can't remember, but I also would love to work with Regina King because she's an emerging director, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times the newer directors they typically bring a very inclusive feeling when they come to the table, right? Especially when they're new, right? Because some of them don't have a lot of framework on how they're going to do things all by themselves, right? So, and I just think it would be great to work with an emerging director like that. So.
Oh yeah, of course. And your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? Woo! I would say upcoming Christmas, because if you look at the traditional side of how we view holidays, we've always had giveaways, right? Our community, our teaching, we have two teachings when we're little. The first one is respect. Always show respect to your elders, to your parents, especially to your mom, right? Because without her would be no you, really. To Mother Earth, but the other thing is to show, to give, right? So when we send our young kids out on their first hunt or first gathering, the first thing we teach them is to come back and give it to the community, give it to the elders, give it to those that aren't able to go out and do that, right? So those are the two principles that we, that we embed in our children, and we grow up that way, right? So when you have a holiday such as Christmas, it's about, again, it's about giving, right? Maybe not, in our view, it wasn't monetary things, right? It was of service, going to someone's house, cutting down some wood for them, right? Taking them some food if you have more food. And so that's what that for me is what that time of, I mean, and I guess too, because collectively across the world, a lot of people are in that mindset of something, right? If some of it can be a little skewed with high dollar gifts and all that, but it's still a mindset of a uplifted spirit, right? And I think that also kind of factors into why I like that month at that time period as well. And because one of the things I love to do is my mom and I, we bake. We do a lot of baking, right? My aunts they used to cater. And so we would bake. And we just bake a whole bunch of stuff. And I would post stuff online, like baking contests with my friends. And I'm like, let me see what you did today. And I'll do this. And, and it would go back and forth. But a lot of stuff, what we bake, we made homemade candy and homemade desserts. But I would take that because I'm not going to eat it all, right? There's not enough people in the house to eat it all. So I would make up what my dad liked to, and my grandmother would affectionately called confectionery bags, right? So we would make up these little bags, would cut up these little things and put them in bags. And then I would take them to elders and people in the community that, I just either haven't seen in a while, or they've been, maybe they're dealing with some kind of ailment or, physical condition. They're not able to get out, and I'll go by, and that will allow me to engage with them to say, hey, I'm thinking of you. Here's a little something that may cheer you up, may make you a little fat, but it also gives me an opportunity to say, hey, do you need your car washed, or do you need wood, or do you need other stuff that, and just to check. And a lot of times they may not need any of that, but just the fact that you thought of them and you went by to see them, see, like when you get here in New York, we get caught up in our own world in our own way. We forget that a lot of people don't see other people sometime, and especially when it's cold out, right?
Yeah.
And it is so, it almost makes me get emotional, because I'm an emotional person. But I think about, that person in the house is just watching TV and cold, got a blanket over their legs, sitting there hours and hours on a day, right? And nobody just comes by just to say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. Just sit around and talk for 10 or 15 minutes, put on a pot of coffee or tea or whatever it is, or, maybe some of the food you bought, you sit down and eat it with them or share it with them or whatever. And those things are priceless.
Yes, of course.
I know my parents, when I was young, I didn't always want to run around from house to house, because that's big in the South, right? That's big, or when I say in rural communities, right? Like in Oklahoma and places like that. When people go shopping on Saturday, usually the rest of the afternoon is spent on your way back home. You might stop by and see 2 or 3 other people, right? And just sit on the porch and just talk, or sit there in the rocking chair and just talk with them, and to me, that's becoming a lost and a very rare moments in time today, because, and I'm not really sure of why, but I remember it and I still do it. So if I'm ever blessed one day to, father children or mentor my niece and aunt, my nieces and nephews, that's what I'm going to take them to do, and teach them that this is how we take care of one another,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Another question. Best advice given to you by your elders?
Best advice given to me by an elder. One is always be humble, to always walk in a gentle way, for respect for our planet, for respect for others, to know that all of the things that we are part of here are just exactly that, things that we do. They're not who we are as a being, and they can be taken away at any moment, right? So there's no, and that's why in our communities we have giveaways, right? Because we teach our young people to not put mental and social attachment to things, because if you do, you start to let those things define who you are, and they can be taken away. Then what do you have left? Nothing, right? So if you just realize that these are just things that we have access to, or can whatever, but you're free to give it away to somebody that may need it more, it teaches us to be, less attached to that, right? So we don't tie emotion to that, right? But being humble, and just being thankful, for the gift of grandfather coming up, the sun, for just be able to breathe this air that we breathe. Those are the lessons that my elders have shared, with me, that I think are extremely important and valuable. Excuse the sirens. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It happens. And last question. Your advice for future Native American artists?
Woo. Well, the quick and hard advice that I got from one of my mentors, Russell Means, was just do it. Don't get into a headspace where you think you have to be perfect, right? If we waited for us to be perfect, it would never happen, because we're human beings. We're not perfect, right? We can strive for perfection, and that's what we do. But to wait for everything to be right, don't wait. That's the hard advice. The other one is, if you don't know it right now, or if you do, basically try to find that light inside of you that sparks, right? Whatever it is, even if it's just, oh, I sew really well, right? If you embrace that small spark of joy and light that you have, and that doing that task or thinking about that moment gives you, we all know that life blooms from a spark, right? It comes from a smaller, and it goes out. So if you start to enjoy that one thing, things will start to multiply and add and come to your life to make your life fuller, right? Because of that joy, it's a synergy, right? And so one of the things that I am working on with a elder friend of mine, is a company called Seven Directions Media. The show we're working on is called Shine On, and that show is to either help people find that spark, or to cultivate the spark that they already have, right? That they know they have. And just what is it that lights you up, that will make you get up out of bed, stay up late, and excitement and joy. And and for some, it may be a small thing, some it may be a big thing, right? Everybody's experience is individual, it's different. And so that is my advice, I think, is because it makes everyone beautiful when you're in that, when you're living in that. I mean, we're all beautiful, and we're all created beautifully, because we're all part of creation, right? But when you see someone's face happy, and when you see someone smiling and their eyes are lit, wow, I'm doing what it is. There's nothing you can put on that, the value of that. There's nothing. I mean, it is so wonderful. But when you see somebody, they down, they always mad. They look like they 80 and they're only 20 years old. That it hurts me when I see people that way, because it's kind of sad, and so through theater, through film, television, storytelling, my cultural presentations, I don't know who that person is that might get a spark or joy from something I say or do or don't do, but just show up, right, with a smile on my face. And if that can happen, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And so I tell other people that they can have the same effect. They can do the same thing, and that's my
Great.
encouragement to someone else that may be struggling. We all struggle with life and things, but we are more than those things, right? And
You're right, John. Well, thank you very much for doing this interview with us.
you're welcome.
Hopefully, this is not the last time we'll see you. And
I wanted to do something for you real quick.
Oh, of course, do something for us.
I wanted to give you a little quick song, if I could,
okay.
real quick, if you didn't mind, okay?
Yeah.
Just to kind of show appreciation for you. And
thank you,
Lucille Ortel, for doing this, for taking the time. And just want to offer this song to you guys just to kind of create a good feeling, all right? So I appreciate it. It's going to be long. Your way, 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 Well,